So I just recorded 30 minutes and realized as I was about to start editing that the microphone was off. So everything is unboxed. This is the box of the G8 Plus Galileo MFI from GameSir. This is a big deal. This is a big deal because this controller is fully certified by Apple. The first for GameSir. GameSir, as we know, is now one of the biggest authority in the controller space. Turns out they have now officially collaborated with one of the biggest companies in the world, being Apple, through the G8 Plus MFI. Now, this box is empty because I already unboxed it. Yes, that's the controller, all white. Kind of a fusion between the G8 and G8 Plus, and we'll cover why in this video. Before we go further, let me continue what was in the box. These little stickers, as well as different inserts to put right here, especially for like your iPad. I would probably use that instead. If you don't use a case, you want to use those. If you use a case, you're fine with what is set up, because yes, it will work with a case, at least the ones I have, without having to do any adjustments. Now, also the other thing that's going to be important, the price should be 80 USD as the time of release, and beyond instructions and sticker, which was in this little box, this part in particular, you also have this other little box at the bottom. In here, you'll find 3 different stick caps. We have a taller option. We have one that has convex with the circles, and then the small nub that they used to put on their X2 line. Personally, not a big fan of the small nub, but if you are, you'll have the option in the box. So drawing comparisons and similarities with specifically the G8 Plus, here are some of those. Of course, let's start with what is the same. You can swap the buttons. So if you want a Nintendo layout by swapping your B and A and your X and Y, you can do that. You also have the ability to remove faceplates. So if you have the previous G8 Plus and you want to do some custom, you can do that. You can also remove the sticks. Well, that's logical since we have different stick caps. The buttons, this is membrane, this is tactile, Hall effect triggers, tactile bumpers, 2 extra back buttons. This is all the same. This will be supported with software, the GameSir software, as well as Game Hub. What is different? Well, if now we compare it to the G8 doesn't have rumble, this one does. Another difference, that one probably much smaller, is you'll notice here we have a pill-shaped 2 buttons. Here we have 2 little small circles. The minus and plus icons are different, though their values, this is fine. This one is properly MFI implemented in terms of its protocol, as we know. And unlike the G8, where you had to, kind of crack it open to mod it, this one, much like the G8 Plus, you can easily mod it by, you stretch it all the way where it ends, and then you push it forward and just keep pulling out as you do that, and you'll see that it comes undone, which is why you can also use that on an iPad Pro, which I'll show you in this video. Now, there's 2 more differences to go by, and probably the biggest one that is in favor of buyers and users is that originally with the G8, and we're talking specifically regular G8, where you had the USB-C, the pivot USB-C, whenever you wanted to connect this to a PC, you had to get a female USB-C to male USB-A or USB-C to be able to connect. That was only for charging pass-through. With this one, you can connect through that USB-C with, a regular cable, and this will make it so that you'll now have a wired controller, much like you can with the G8 Plus. With the G8 Plus, it made sense because there's no USB-Cs. This one, you can, much like you would with a Backbone or a Razer. And as far as I can tell, this is the first telescopic controller from GameSir to have the feature to use the charging pass-through port to also have data pass-through to an external device. You can do it here. Of course, you retain the 3.5mm jack, so you can use headphones with this one. A feature you actually lose with this one versus the G8 and G8 Plus is you no longer have macro, you no longer have turbo. So you can still map your back buttons, you can still have shortcuts to change the layout, all that works. But if you try to do M and A, for example, and if you have a previous one, you'll know that when you do that, this little LED here will flash and suddenly you'll have turbo. This will not work here. If you map, so by holding M and your back button until it flashes, and then you push 2 buttons at the same time, which is considered a macro, this will not work. It will only capture the first button that was pushed in the sequence. And if you're trying to do multiple buttons, of course, that won't work as well. This is macro. There is hardware detection. So to show you what I mean, I'm just going to plug an iPhone here. And now on the iPhone, it's going to detect that it's connected. And if you hold minus and plus, usually that changes the mode. It will not work with the MFI model when you're specifically on an iPhone or on an iPad, because the moment you put it on an iPhone or an iPad, it will do hardware detection. It will detect that it's an Apple device, and it will only stick to the Apple MFI certified protocol. However, if you are to take exactly the same controller and you plug an Android, such as this Red Magic 10S Pro, and for some reason, when I updated the controller, my LED doesn't show. And right now, because I'm on test software until the controller fully releases, I don't have LED adjustment. But usually you're going to have your LED up, okay? This is really just a question of circumstance. I would assume that this means the app will let you shut it completely, which is a feature that was also requested for a long time. I believe this is going to be possible with this controller. And you would also be able to have it up whenever you want, if you adjust it in the settings, or whenever you change protocols, and I'll show you that right now. Now you can see it works fine with Dredge. And if you hold minus and plus, you'll see here that the LED is going to change color. So right now I'm on an X input mode, which this is only going to work on PC and Android. If you are on an iPhone, it will not work. If you hold again, it's going to change to a blue mode, and that is a change that can happen, but only when you're on PC or when you're on Android. And again, just to show you guys what I mean, I'm going to plug through the bottom port. My PC detects it and went to blue light. If I hold it, and you might have heard the USB, it went to green light. Let me do it one last time just to show you. And voila, now it's back to the blue light. We have Hall Effect sticks, so that's the same as the G8 and G8 Plus. Of course, these are phenomenal sticks. GameSir, again, with software, with their sticks, they're some of the best out there. You have Hall Effect triggers, which you can still activate a hair trigger mode. And as you may have noticed, there are no battery. This doesn't work as a Bluetooth controller. This has to be connected at all times, whether it is here or here now, because we have the feature to use both. As long as it is connected to something to receive some power, then it will work. I think I mentioned it, but if I haven't, another thing that you also lose with this one versus the G8 Plus specifically, because the G8 also didn't have that feature, is gyro. This doesn't have a gyro sensor. And last, this one doesn't have a switch mode. You'll notice when I was doing the select and start, there was never a red LED, which is what you would have gotten if this had a switch mode like the G8 Plus does. So for example, if I hold, I believe X and the, there you go. That is the Nintendo Switch mode. We don't have that on this model. It doesn't work in any capacity on Switch, even if wired. You're not paying more for the newer model. So that would assume, logically speaking, that would make it so that GameSir is probably absorbing the cost that comes from MFI, because I'm pretty sure that there's a fee to license MFI. And still, even if you do pay the fee, you have to be big enough for them to even consider you into MFI. So it is still a win for GameSir for sure. But there are some features, or there are some areas where you may want to get a G8 Plus as opposed to getting a G8 Plus MFI. One thing that is nice though, because it is MFI certified, if you are on the Apple ecosystem, whether it is iPhone or iPad mini, or even the big iPad, which I'll show you in a second, what this means by being MFI certified is it should stay supported in future versions of iPhone. If for any reason Apple was ever to have spoofing cracked, so to speak, so they're able to detect spoofing and block spoofing, this would mean that this controller will still work. So this is, you know, a benefit. And then for some people, it also follows the, I guess, the Apple aesthetic a little bit more by being all white and gray. Now, there is one feature that I mentioned earlier in the video, which even though you have, it's not going to work on iPhones, and that's important to know, is going to be rumble. Yes, you have rumble. You have two rotary motors, one left, one right with this controller. It still won't work on Apple. And just to make sure everyone knows about this, this is not a limitation on GameSir. This is a limitation on Apple MFI. And for example, the only two controller to my knowledge that works with Rumble on Apple devices is a first-party PlayStation controller or a first-party Xbox controller. So if you go and say, oh wait, that's not true, the G8 Plus does work with Rumble on an iPhone, you're right. But the reason why it does is because it is spoofed. It emulates, it mimics, it deceives the iPhone into thinking that it is a PlayStation first-party controller. It deceives the iPhone into thinking it is a first-party Xbox controller. A proper licensed controller cannot do that. And that is the reason why, much like Razer controllers that are supported by iPhones and iPads, they don't have Rumble. The GameSir controller does not have Rumble on the MFI certified protocol. But if you are to take this very controller and take it to Android, take it to Windows, and like I mentioned, it has Rumble motor, Rumble will work on those platforms. So this is a very important distinction to make. This is not a limitation on GameSir. This is a limitation on Apple. And no, even though they have sent me this controller, by the way, no one has told me to say that. I just so happen to be very well educated into controllers and protocol, and that's why I understand that this limitation is not on GameSir. It is on Apple, because it is a behavior that is the case with every licensed controllers on Apple that still have Rumble motors. It just doesn't work with Apple MFI. All right, with that out of the way, let me show you guys what it looks like when you put an iPad on it. And for the record, the controller is marketed to work with iPhones and iPad minis, and indeed, when you stretch it, you'll have enough with an iPad mini. In fact, you'll even have enough with a Red Magic Astro. Of course, you're going to have other issues with the Red Magic Astro because the button is being pushed at the moment, or at least I think it is, but it's going to fit without any fiddling. Same goes with a Y700. So small form factor tablets will work just fine. So how about the iPad Pro, right? It doesn't stretch wide enough, but like I showed you earlier in the video, you can easily mod it. So again, crack it open till the very end, slap it as you pull out. And what I do to put the iPad is I fold it, and I know it's scary. Oh, and by the way, if you have a camera, an iPhone with a camera bump, this little door can be removed. I have another G8 Plus MFI right here where I did remove it. And this is gonna, if you have the small iPhone, for example, this is a 17 Pro Max. This, unfortunately, will not stretch long enough so that the camera bump doesn't. And of course, this case has a pretty bulky camera bump. But with the Pro Max or Plus, it's going to fit better because the camera bump, once you remove that little back plate here, is going to give you a better fit. I'm all over the place, guys. Anyways, back to putting an iPad Pro. So I crack it open like this, and then I just insert it like so. Once it is inserted, I just hold it, flip back the controller, and there you go. Stretch it and put it on, and there you go. You have your controller on the iPad. Now, this is something I personally do because when you do that, the corners do get sharp a little bit, and I'm too concerned of scratching the back of my iPad. That is why I have put masking tape. And usually I do that with the G8 Plus, you know, the Bluetooth one. So I'm able to drag it up and down. That's why I have masking tape, you know, the whole vertical. And here's another benefit to the G8 Plus MFI. For example, if you want to do this with Razer Kishi controllers, you need to have one for tablets and one for your phone. Whereas with this one, you can just crack it open. And in case you're thinking, oh, but wait, the coils are discovered. Like, what if I short something? Here, I'm strumming them literally, and I'm going to strum them. I'm sorry, I just had a call right now. I'm going to strum them while I'm pushing the buttons, and hopefully you guys hear it. But I think what GameSir does here is they actually probably have a copper wire that is dipped into another metal alloy that will shield and not do connectivity on the coils itself. And I've been strumming them since the G8. I understand where people may be scared to do this, but like, you're not hurting the controllers, you're not hurting your inputs. If you wanted to have shields, there are aftermarket pieces that can be sold or 3D printed if you have a printer. Personally, I don't care. I leave them discovered like that and I just use it. And this is something that you could do on your iPad Pro or large form factor tablet. I have done that also on even Samsung Tab Ultra, on Android or iOS tablets, on PC tablets such like a Minis Forum V3 or the upcoming Super X. They're way too heavy and too thick. But when it comes to like iOS tablets or Android tablets, which are much thinner, yeah, it works absolutely fine. Oh, and another benefit to the G8 Plus MFI that you don't have on the previous G8s is if you push this button here, it will take a screenshot because you need proper MFI implementation to be able to do that. Or if you hold the button, it's also going to record your screen. And so there it is, guys. If you are interested in learning more of the G8 line, I have this video that I'm probably going to put up here that goes over a lot of things that you can do. Now, to be fair, because this is a different model, some things may be different. And because this is a Bluetooth model, of course, like everything to do with radio signal, of course, is not going to apply. But when it comes to the software, you'll also have details here. And just to like show you quickly, do I have the GameSir software on this one? I do. Let's go. Because the software is not fully out, if you just hit plus, if ever you get it and you receive it super fast and you don't see that the G8 Plus MFI is here, just go on the G8 Plus and then you back out and you'll see that you'll be able to make the changes, and that should be all the features that we have. So you have the ability to change your settings, and even though I'm on an iPad and it vibrates right now, just keep in mind that this is because of the software. The games themselves, when being played on iOS, will not vibrate with the G8 Plus MFI. You can put hair trigger here, change dead zones for your trigger. You can also address dead zone for your stick and swap the left stick and D-pad, diagonal D-pad lock, left joystick, original range. I prefer raw, so I'm going to put raw on both. That's a me thing. You do what you want. You can swap button to the Xbox layout, but if you want to have a Switch layout value, that doesn't mean it's going to work on Switch. We address that, but if you want the layout value, so for your B to B down and your A to B right, you can swap that as well. So if you have any controller testing you'd like to do, confirm that everything works, you can do that here. And of course, do the firmware upgrade if there's a latest firmware, but at the time of recording this video, that I believe is the latest. And so there it is, guys. I remove it. There you go. And now you can just remove it like this. This is the G8 Plus MFI, phenomenal controller. You know, there are definitely reasons to pick this up over the G8 if you have a G8, just like there are reasons to pick this up over the G8 Plus. And it is a phenomenal controller, great ergonomics, great buttons, great sticks, and features as well. Do I have a con? I kind of do. We've waited more than a year at this point to have an updated version of this controller, and arguably you could say we actually waited 2 years versus the regular G8, which I would argue is more a successor of that one. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit disappointed. Now, don't get me wrong, there are features that are improved here, like having rumble and having the data pass through off of the USB-C. But effectively, these are the two benefits. You're losing macro, you're losing turbo. Where are the hair triggers? Why don't we have TMR sticks? I'm a little disappointed. Why do we still have the same D-pad? Like, I feel like Membrane would have done better. It's cool that we get that at the same price as the previous models, but at the same time, if you own one of the previous models, I find that this controller does very little to justify getting this one. If you are in the Apple ecosystem and you need a controller, that's definitely the one to get now. But I'm here thinking, GameSir is the authority. And right now, Razer, from a feature standpoint, Razer has the best telescopic controller on the market. Now, granted, they're going to be stupid expensive if you want to cover both your phones and tablets, but they do have TMR, they have 6 extra buttons, they have HD rumble. Why is it that we don't have at least hair triggers, maybe 4 buttons in the back? I'm a little disappointed here because I think that was an opportunity for GameSir to at least close the gap versus what is the most feature-dense option on the market, or at least, you know, improve what we can expect from a G8 controller. But unfortunately, that is not the case here. So like also the Raptor, the Lenovo G7, if you have those controllers, which realistically are the same as the G8, again, the only add-on is the pass-through and the rumble for the people out there who have that controller. I definitely wish this one did a little more to stand out. A great product. There's nothing to fault here in terms of how good it is. That's definitely a good quality telescopic controller. But I don't know. Maybe I'm expecting too much of GameSir, but I feel like they could have done more to establish their dominance on the market. And right now, this is without a doubt the best value option, but it is not the one that dominates in terms of features and quality. Right now, Razer still holds that title. Yeah, I'm hoping we won't have to wait 2 years until we finally have a G8 Ultra or whatever they want to call it that really intently redefines what GameSir is capable of doing in the telescopic market. And so there it is. That's my only con. Everything else is basically a pro through and through. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment box. As always, thank you very much for watching and for GameSir sending this controller for review. If you have any inputs, you know where to put them. And consider subscribing to not missing any future gaming tech reviews. My name is Clef, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.